Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick.
Yo to Bull fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, you guys hear what happened? Do you guys know what happened over the 4th of July weekend? Honestly, some of the rumors were surfacing around that time. I completely dismissed them. I was like, that sounds like a hoax. Naji Harris involved in a firework accident, injuring an eye. Well, lo and behold, official sources yesterday did confirm that Naji Harris did suffer, sustained a superficial eye injury during the incident, but is fully expected to be ready for the upcoming NFL season. That is absolutely nuts to see one of the healthiest players in all of football come to the Chargers for 5 minutes and find himself injured in a freak accident. Either way, though, guys, we are talking about this man and his teammates revolving around the run game today. Bold predictions, rushing edition. Of course, you guys know that this is maybe the biggest aspect of the year that I am most excited about. The Chargers want to be that run-first team, want to be that successful control-the-clock team, ground-and-pound team. Last season, don't know if that quite worked out the way that they had hoped, but this season, I think they finally have all the pieces to become one of the league's most dangerous running teams, and I got a whole bunch of bold predictions that I think the Chargers could produce this season and really identify themselves as a dangerous ground team in 2025. So let's get into it. Before we do, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take advantage of the offer on screen, the gimme pick. It's a great way to enjoy the season of baseball, all the other stuff off season of the NFL season, and have some fun along the way while supporting my platform. Thank you to everybody that has ever done that, man. It truly does mean a lot. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera,
Action!
Who's got it better than us?
Your Chargers bold predictions rushing edition. Guys, I apologize. I got hit so hard a couple of days ago with some kind of, summer flu or fever. It's absolutely awful. I couldn't even get on for Sim Sundays this week, but man, we're starting to bounce back. We're here, and we're talking about, this is one of the videos I had on my schedule. I was like, man, I'm so excited about this. We're not missing that this week. The Chargers rushing, and how I think it's not only going to help the Chargers win more football games, but really turn heads in the NFL and say, hey, the Chargers, man, not only do they have Justin Herbert, not only do they have this defense that's really nasty with Derwin James and Khalil Mack, but man, they are one of the most dangerous running teams in the NFL as well. And here are some bold predictions that I think support that idea. We're going to jump right into them. I have a whole bunch of bold predictions that I want you guys to follow along with, and let me know in the comment section below if you agree with them, disagree with them, or have other bold predictions you think could be achieved by the Chargers this season. Of course, you guys see Omarion Hampton on screen. Maybe the most hyped player of the draft this year for me. Of course, you guys saw everywhere on my channel, on Bleacher Report even, in the huge mock draft stage that we were on with 31 other, content creators for each team. I chose Omarion Hampton. This was my guy from the beginning, and I had no idea that there was any shot of him being selected by the Chargers at our pick. It just felt like there's a lot of other directions that we could have gone, and lo and behold, it ended up happening, and I absolutely lost my mind. And it's for good reason. I'm very, very high on this guy. I think when it comes to not just talent of an individual player, but also destination situation, you may be looking at one of the most impactful rookie running backs that we've seen in some time. Maybe, in the range of a Bijan Robinson, which is certainly very, very exciting. So my first bold prediction of this video, which may be pretty bullish, but I'm going to stand by it, man. I am, again, very, very high on what Omarion Hampton could be this season. I think Omarion Hampton produces 1,400 total yards in 2025. And I feel really good about 14. That's been in the back of my mind since he was drafted. I've been kind of going back and forth between how he produces or the way that he achieves something close to that. I've been at 1,100 yards, 1,200 yards. 1,400 is kind of where I feel like confident. Like I feel like if the Chargers use him the way I think they're going to use him, and he gets as many snaps as I think he's going to get for this offense, that you're looking at a 1,400 total yard beast. And this would put him in line with players like Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor, and yes, even Naji Harris in their rookie seasons. That's a lot of yards for a rookie, man. But if you're going to get that much yardage from a rookie on your team, running back is a pretty good bet. Wide receivers have been stepping up lately as well, but running back in the right situation, they really can pop. And that's why you see in a lot of fantasy football leagues, in those different kinds of media, the fantasy footballers, I'm sure, are talking the crap, or talking a whole bunch of stuff about this guy as well. I know that they're probably pretty excited. Everybody in terms of fantasy and outlooks, they know that Omarion Hampton has a really big opportunity in front of him. He's in a run-first offense. Jim Harbaugh, offensive line seen improvement. The offense as a whole has seen a lot of improvement. I think it's absolutely possible that you're looking at a 1,400-yard rookie right off the back in Omarion Hampton. Now, I think it is possible that, let's say, how we're going to, cut up this pie and how he's going to achieve 1,400 yards. I absolutely do think it's possible. I would not be in the least bit shocked if he crosses 1,000 rushing yards this season. As a matter of fact, kind of where I feel comfortable is around 1,100. I feel like 1,100 yards feels very, very reasonable for me and in my outlook of Omarion Hampton. But I don't think it's necessary for him to reach 1,000 rushing yards to reach 1,400 total yards. For example, I could see him rushing for, let's say, 900 yards, just under the mark of 1,000 in his rookie season, but still reaching 1,400 total yards with a 500 receiving yards season. Because let's not forget, Omarion Hampton is sneakily one of the best receiving backs you're going to see in this class as well. Maybe one of the few things that he had over Ashton Genty was his ability in the receiving game. And I do think that's going to help Omarion Hampton stay on the field a lot more, be more involved with Justin Herbert, who we know that history between Herbert and Austin Eckler, that was a constant. That's something that Justin Herbert looked to very, very often. This will be a factor this year, and that's what kind of pays into my first prediction of 1,400 yards. I think that's pretty easy, in my opinion, to hit when you have a receiving back that's capable of producing 300, 400, 500 yards through the air, as well as whatever he produces on the ground, which should also be pretty substantial. So my first bold prediction, Omarion Hampton, 1,400 yards in his rookie season, defining the position for the Chargers for the next however many seasons he plays with the team, and really putting a new stamp on the offense for the Bolts going forward in the Jim Harbaugh era. Next up, what about his teammate, Naji Harris? Of course, we're wishing him a speedy recovery. It sounds like he's going to be just fine. It's definitely a scary thing as a pro NFL football player, especially a running back that really, relies on your eyes and senses. It sounds like things are okay. We're hoping that he's absolutely 100% ready to go here in the coming weeks. From what I looked up, superficial eye injuries can range, but certainly the recovery time puts him inside that window of returning much sooner rather than later. So, Naji Harris, with all that being said, I do think he produces another 1,000-yard season with the Chargers, despite having Omarion Hampton cutting into his workload by quite a bit. Now, let me go ahead and expand on this a little bit. Some of you guys are probably scoffing, like, being director again. Well, that prediction may be a little bit deceiving. I don't think Naji nabs another 1,000 rushing yard season this year. Of course, he's put one up every single year of his career so far. But with Hampton looming and his usage almost certainly going way down, I think it's very unlikely that he hits that 1,000 yards rushing again. However, I think 1,000 total yards is still on the table because Naji, sneakily, like Omarion Hampton, has been a great receiving back for the Steelers over the past how many seasons now. And I think he's going to get a lot more opportunity to do that with Justin Herbert. You'll remember his rookie season. I had to have been with Big Ben, right? He put up it was like almost 500 yards in that year. I think it's a very underrated part of his game, and it's something that you're going to see return with the Chargers. So honestly, I'll put Najee down for 700 or 800 yards on the ground this season, but you could add another 200 or 300 yards through the air maybe, which technically would put him over the 1,000 total yard mark. And that would really make a lot of sense with the way the Chargers offense is looking, the way that you're going to be splitting carries, the way that you're going to be running the football. I think that's pretty reasonable to think about. All right, so Naji Harris puts up another 1,000 yards. Maybe not what he's been doing so far in his career, but total yardage certainly is a huge impact with this team. And all of a sudden, guys, you start looking at what we're doing here with these running backs. You know, I'm projecting 1,400 total yards for Amari Hampton, 1,000 total yards for Naji Harris. Start two running backs alone over 2,400 total yards. It's absolutely insane. But that's the kind of season that I think we're in for with the Chargers on the ground this year. Next up, talking about responsibilities, right? The Chargers signed Naji Harris pretty early this season to really hedge their bet on having a ready, available, and scheme-specific running back on the roster before the NFL draft. And honestly, Naji being RB1 was not a bad look for the Chargers. You know, having that heavy hitter, the guy that never misses football games, the guys that fit that man gap system, feels really, really nice. Well, they doubled down with Amari Hampton in the NFL draft, being the most talented player on the board, might I add. And that does. I'm so foggy brained right now, guys. I'm so sorry. That does change things a lot for me in terms of who maybe might be RB1 this season. And again, I've said this a couple of times. I think I talked about it on Bleacher Report this last week. This reminds me a lot of the situation last year with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. You know, I was at the Gus Edwards press conference. We got to talk to him and ask him questions. And by that time, everything was perceived of him being RB1. He was the big heavy hitter, RB1 on the team. Well, a little later, J.K. Dobbins was signed, and in season, that's where things really took a turn. You know, maybe it might have been the Gus Edwards show the first couple of weeks, but very quickly into the season, J.K. Dobbins took over just simply because of the wider variety of things he could do at running back. That was definitely producing for the team. And at that point on, it really was J.K. Dobbins whenever he was available on the field. Of course, we did see some injuries. It was up and down with both of those running backs. But J.K. Dobbins ultimately did take that role, and I see a similar thing brewing here with Amari Hampton. You got that big, like hammer the thunder in Naji Harris, who's going to get some early down work, be that big bruiser, and they got Amari Hampton like the slasher, the lightning, who I think is going to be that big play producer, and ultimately gets the bulk of snaps at running back. And I think you're going to see that earlier rather than later this season. I think Amari Hampton takes running back one responsibilities early, but this unit as a whole, as a duo, is going to produce very, very nice, not just numbers, but results. I think the Chargers, in terms of winning games, taking control of the clock, et cetera, are going to improve dramatically from this duo. But if you're hedging your bet on one or the other to be, let's say, your fantasy football running back this season, Amari Hampton, I think, is going to end up being RB1, of course, totaling 1,400 yards. I don't know where the touchdowns are going to go. I'm going to be honest there. I think Najee may get more goal line opportunities, but I think Omarian's definitely going to be scoring more from, outside the red zone. You might see 2 or 3 more touchdowns there. So you have to wait and see. I think both these players exceptional. I think the Chargers have a great answer to what their weakness was last year in availability for the running backs. And I really do think that it's going to be a great tandem no matter who running back one technically is. But I'm going to say Amari Hampton takes RB1 early in the season. All right. Next up, this is a pretty big one, man. It's not one that I think I've heard talked about, and it's not one that I think I've been able to cover yet. And it's a pretty important topic, a pretty important take, I'm going to say. Bold prediction, Omarian and Najee break the Chargers' curse with Jim Harbaugh. Now, you may have seen some of that last season, right? Some losses that could have been wins that could have become losses. The Chargers have largely been known for their last second losses in my time as a fan, right? The chokers and this and that. That's become expected every single season. I think the run game may be the key to changing that narrative this seaon. I think Omarion and Naji are going to help the Chargers take better control of their situation and better control of the offense and putting them in more positions to close things out. The Bolts' ability to close out games on the ground and control the clock should theoretically keep us from this choking scenario, from these situations where we're looking at a last-second loss, etc., etc. That whole narrative may have been on the back of, let's be honest, poor defensive play calling for some time. Of course, Jesse Minter, some of the Gus Bradley days were not too bad either. But it really does feel like that and the run game should help put a large majority of that behind us. Imagine if we had a consistent and effective run game versus that playoff game versus Jacksonville, how much different that would have looked. Or let's even say this last game versus the Houston Texans. How much different would that look if Justin Herbert didn't need to throw the ball a million times to just Ladd McConkey and we could actually run the football? This is going to be a huge deal for the offense, folks. This is a huge, completely team-shifting, identity-shifting addition to the team that's really going to help define this offense going forward and ultimately help maybe put this Chargers curse behind us. I feel very confident in that. Omarion and Naji, I really do think this duo is taking us into the future as Chargers fans. All right, next up. And that's a pretty big one, man. And don't forget that one. As we're going through this video and as we're going through the season, just remember that this could be it. This could finally be the answer to what has been a woe for the Chargers and its fans for so long. Next up, let's talk a little bit about offensive line. I know it's not as exciting as the running backs, but it's also very, very important, okay? First off, Joe Alt had a fantastic season last year in his rookie year. Finished 20th among tackles, ranked top 10 among right tackles. Absolutely fantastic, dream scenario at right tackle for a rookie last year. Of course, that's what Jim Harbaugh wanted to do. The offensive line has taken precedence in a lot of these situations. It's been awesome. This year, it seems that he's getting ready to reach a new stratosphere, however. We've heard Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh and all these guys really screaming praise at Joe Alt and his development in his second season, which is awesome. This is, of course, things that we knew when we drafted him. A couple seasons ago, like Joe Alt, my God, is it him, League Neighbors, this and that? Well, the pro with Joe Alt is that you're getting an awesome starting right tackle in year one, and his ceiling was unimaginable going forward. Over the next 2-3 years, you could be looking at the best right tackle in football, and it seems that he's moving in that direction with everything we've heard so far in the offseason. Alt could find himself in the top 10 of total tackles this season, maybe even top 5 or even 3 of right tackles in the league this season from everything that we've heard. That would be significant, not just to protecting Justin Herbert, but could contribute to a monster run game season by the Bolts like we're predicting in this video. Joe Alt being the Joe Alt of Notre Dame, the Joe Alt of season 2 of Jim Harbaugh, like this could really push the Chargers run game into that next level, having him be that tip of the spear in blocking for Naji and Omarion, especially on the edge. That would be just so good to see. So I think Joe Alt, you're looking at a top 10 tackle in football this year, maybe even a top 5 right tackle in the league this season. It could be even more than that from what we're hearing. So Joe Alt, the expectations are very high, and I do think he meets those expectations this season. As a matter of fact, I do think that Joe Alt and his teammate Rashawn Slater love this photo, by the way. It reminds me of, is it the old couple? I don't remember where they are. With the pitchfork, the grandpa and the grandma. Anyway, I think that Alt and Slater finish as the best duo or tackle duo in the league this season. Now, Rashawn Slater last year, I think he was second among tackles in very many categories last year, which is significant. And you got to take the average of, both tackles and then put it up against the average of all the tackles in the NFL per team to kind of get to the number where I'm thinking. But, I think the Chargers stand as good a chance as anybody to have the best tackle duo in all of football. When you take the average grades of both of these guys, it will be significant. Now, that's going to help Justin Herbert a lot. I think that helped him a lot last season in terms of his protection and not throwing as many interceptions. But in terms of the run game, especially, right, being able to go to the left or the right side, and maybe in those outside zone runs like that, that's awesome. You guys watch these guys in their blocking in those run plays, man. Alt, obviously, he's very nimble and he's very strong, but Rashawn Slater, man, some of the blocks I've seen him throw in terms of run blocking is absolutely incredible. And to have the Chargers not only with the best, tackle duo in the league, but now an exceptional talent in Omarion and Naji Harris at running back. You're going to see a big difference this season. So Alt and Slater finishes the best tackle duo in the league. Feel good about that one. But the newcomer is also one that I want to talk a little bit about. One that I think is going to have a big impact, as big as his smile, as big as his frame. I think Mekhi Becton could end up being the missing link on this offense, on this offensive line, I should say. Sometimes, and I've seen this happen, especially with Corey Linsley. I'm going to say, if you guys remember the Chargers offensive line back in that day, it was absolutely dreadful. And then all of a sudden, Corey Linsley ends up being signed by the Chargers, and it really affected everybody on the line in some way, shape, or form. And we had some pretty solid seasons behind Linsley, whether or not it was, elite or average or whatever. It was much improved to what the Chargers had been for many, many seasons. I think Mekhi Becton could serve the same, result for the Chargers offensive line this season, because sometimes a single player can change a line for the better. Like we saw with Corey Linsley. Now, he's not the center. That's obviously like the quarterback of the offensive line. But Mekhi Becton has already been praised for his work ethic, for his leadership, for his result, his, presence, obviously. This is a team player right here. And on top of that, what he's going to be able to produce as a player, his premium talent, I think that's going to trickle. Because playing next to premium talent can have an effect on the guy next to you. For our center, whether it be Bozeman or Zion or otherwise, he should benefit greatly from what Becton is doing at guard beside. We got to think about that. Last season, Bradley Bozeman, he was playing by a not-so-great Zion Johnson season and a Trey Pipkins season. Maybe having that extra help from Becton on the right side all of a sudden will find a better season for the center overall. And whether it be, again, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Bozeman again. It kind of feels like that's where we're trending. But let's say we do see a shocker and it is Zion Johnson. I think you're looking at a pretty good situation for whoever plays center this season, playing next to Bozeman, as to really not getting a lot of help last season at all. The guards certainly need to step up, being next to Alt and Slater. But I think Becton's going to be a nice impact player this season too. Really quick on the backups, I would expect, and this is going to be a hot take, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, because the competition is very fierce. The contributions by Hassan Haskins have been great in special teams, but how is that all going to impact the roster construction? I think Rocket Sanders wins RB4 on this offense. I think he's just an exceptional talent. He's one of those guys that I would have drafted in the 5th round, maybe 4th round. You could have convinced me. He ends up coming undrafted to the Chargers. His archetype, his build, his talent, his speed, everything really mirrors well to what you would want in a backup for Omarion Hampton specifically, and Naji Harris. Hassan Haskins, great talent on special teams. It would be a very tough and difficult decision, but one that I think makes a little bit of sense here. So Rocket Sanders, Kamani Vidal, I think these are my primary backups right now. It's going to be close. I would not be the least bit shocked if it's Hassan Haskins. His special teams contributions cannot be understated enough or overstated enough. But I think Rocket Sanders is that special of a prospect that he may end up winning the job through training camp. So that's a number to keep an eye out. 28 and 35. These guys, how do they stack up against each other? Because that's going to be a pretty stiff competition for RB4, which is going to be a pretty important position for this team with how much we're leading into the run this year. Quick prediction for Steve Klotz. I think he ends up making the roster. I think he's going to end up being that alternative fullback option for the Chargers. You're going to see plenty of Scott Matlock. But I think in terms of like a utility fullback, a guy that's used maybe more like Kyle Juszczyk or Patrick Ricard, I think Steve Klotz has really stood out so far and could find himself in a position to make the 53 and be that guy for Jim Harbaugh going forward, okay? The last thing I want to end on, because as you guys could probably tell, dude, I am completely stuffed up now. But from the front of this video to now, I'm sure you guys are hearing a much different director, right? So at the top, like, hey, this is the director. And now it feels like we're coming into this era of the director. We got to wrap this thing up. Luckily, this is going to be the last bold prediction on this video. Final bold prediction. And this is a pretty significant one. It could be a historic one. The Chargers produce 2,000 plus rushing yards this season. So divided up on, all the players, and not just the running backs, but like Justin Herbert, maybe a couple wide receiver runs, this and that. All of the rushing yards added up to over 2,000 yards this season. Now, to kind of set your guys' expectations, the Chargers last season ranked 17th in the league in rushing yards with 1,882. So it's not too far of a stretch to say, hey, with this tandem, we get another, 100 or 200 yards. That seems pretty easy, right? This was already improved from 1,642 yards on the ground in 2023. So the Chargers are slowly building, this run game over the last couple of years. But it's clear what the plan was last season. Create a reliable run game that the Chargers can lean on. And as we've discussed, that largely failed due to a few things like poor interior offensive line play and player health. Running backs just couldn't stay on the field. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So those injuries and everything kind of lined us up to the 17th best running team in the NFL. That is about to change. The Bolts have flipped a complete 180. Naji Harris, unlike Gus Edwards, will say, has never missed a game in his NFL career, ever. He's been the most healthy, one of the most healthy players in the NFL in his career so far. What's that, the last 3 or 4 years? Absolutely insane. On the other side, this man, Omarion Hampton, he missed only one half of a football game in his college career. Both of these guys have been incredibly healthy, remarkably healthy. And it almost put the Chargers, in my mind, most certainly at a 2,000-yard rushing season this year. Just the fact that they're going to be there, they're going to be consistent and gaining momentum. I think it's almost a lock that you're going to see a 2,000-yard rushing season this year, which is very reasonable. I think it's a very reasonable hot take. Where the actual hot take comes in is I think they rank a bit higher, in my opinion. The top rushing teams in the NFL were all around 2,500 rushing yards this season. The Ravens and the Eagles certainly defined it this year. They both went for over 3,000 rushing yards, which, of course, Saquon in his 2,000-yard season and the Ravens with Derrick Henry, like that was kind of to be expected. But teams like Tampa Bay, Detroit, even the Commanders, these guys were all around 2,500 yards or even better, some of them. So, do I think that's where the Chargers end up? I think, honestly, yeah, this is where I think the new Chargers offense will rank somewhere in, maybe a bit lower, but somewhere in this range, right? The Chargers, in my mind, are going to land somewhere in the top 10 of rushing teams in 2025, putting them anywhere between 2,000 and 2,500 yards, right? If we cut that down the middle and we say 2,250 yards, that would already be a massive improvement, right? That would be one of our best seasons since the LT era. It would be a top 5 franchise season ever, and I think it's absolutely achievable by this unit and by Jim Harbaugh and the way that he runs his team. So I'm going to say my official bold take here, my hot take, is that 2,250 yards is what the team's going to produce this year. You're going to see a large chunk of that from Omarion and Naji, maybe some from Justin Herbert a little bit more this season. But that will put the Chargers firmly in the top 10 in rushing teams this year. And if they can get closer to that 2,500 mark, you're looking at a top 5 almost team in the NFL this year in terms of rushing, in my opinion. So should be pretty exciting, man. The Chargers rushing game, This could be a defining aspect of the 2025 season, and it's one that I think is really going to help this team find their footing in the Jim Harbaugh era, help Justin Herbert out a ton, help the receivers out a ton, and ultimately, and maybe one of the most importantly, going to help the defense out a ton, man. Think about that. What this defense is going to be able to do when your offense is not only producing, but taking control of the clock, keeping control of the football. It feels like all of this is adding up to a fantastic bounce back season for the Chargers on offense. It's going to be remarkable. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty. I'm going to go find some Dayquil. Love you both, fam.